If you're still charging rock bottom rates for your organizing services, we need to talk. Because it's not just sabotaging your business, it's also sabotaging the entire industry. I say this with total love. I have been you. I understand imposter syndrome. I know the drama around who am I to charge that much? But this industry is exploding right now, and if we keep undervaluing our services, we're telling the entire world that organizing is just a hobby and not a powerful career path. So today I'm gonna show you exactly how undercharging is hurting you and what to do instead. So stick around and let's get into it. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Speak Organized podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Summers, professional organizer, ADHD organizing specialist, and your go-to gal for all things pro-organizing business. I like to speak organized to give you the tools to conquer your clutter, live life with more purpose, and learn all about the business of tidying. Now do me a favor, if you haven't already, take out your device and tap the subscribe button so that you are a member of the Speaker fam officially. We would love to have you. And if you get value out of today's training, go ahead and tap the thumbs up and the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube so that you are notified whenever we post new content every single week. And if you are an Apple Podcast user, go ahead and leave us that rave 5-star review so that we can reach more amazing folks just like you looking to level up in their game of organizing and the business of tidying. Lastly, if you're new to our community and you haven't joined our free Facebook group yet, go down to the description of the video or the podcast show notes. You will find the link to join that group there. It is a thriving, extremely supportive community where you can ask and have all of your most burning questions answered by a group of people who are extremely supportive and very knowledgeable. We would love to have you join us in there. And I officially got through the entire intro while holding my cat. Can you hear him purring into the microphone? I don't know, but you know what? This was probably like the third or fourth time that I have tried filming this segment, and it was the best take that I got. And so I'm just gonna let the cat be in the shot. So that's how it goes sometimes. All right, fam, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of this because you probably know that undercharging is not good for your business, but you might not know why or how, and so that's what we're going to talk about. And at this point in time in my coaching career, I've probably worked with over 1,000 organizers at this point, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, but I sat down and crunched the numbers the other day and I was like, holy crap, that's so true. Mostly women, some men, and I really pay attention in those group coaching settings and those one-on-one coaching settings to where people are at, what they're saying, what roadblocks they're facing, and the language that they're using. And I take notes like nobody's business. I'm all about data and patterns. And so there are patterns that have emerged that I want to share with you because it's really important. And of course, if you're sitting here listening and watching, you'll know that there are exceptions to the rule. There's gonna be a yeah, but. We're gonna set the yeah, but aside because the data doesn't lie, and there are gonna be people listening and watching that need to hear this and really absorb the sort of general trends that are going on in terms of how you develop your rates. So I want to help you avoid these pitfalls, overcome some of that imposter syndrome by understanding exactly, what numbers you need to run and figure things out. I've got a ton of other free trainings on pricing. You can always come and book a coaching session with me to crunch your own personal numbers based on your personal financial goals and business goals. But the thing that is universally true for the most part when people come to me, they want a sense of freedom in their schedule. They want that flexibility to spend time with their family and their kids. They want out of corporate America in a lot of cases. They want to have an impact on the people around them, doing something that they know they're good at. A lot of people come to me and say, I know I've got what it takes. I know I'm good at this. What is the first thing that I need to do? And I always tell them that you need to understand the business back end because you're not just organizing. You're not labor for hire, random off the street or off some corner of the internet. You are a business owner, and entrepreneurship comes with a lot of challenges. You have to do everything, including a lot of stuff that you may have never done before. You may be really uncomfortable in the sales process, and that is where a lot of the pitfalls of undercharging stem from. So what I generally see, there's three things that I tend to see about why undercharging is hurting you. And so it's just good to be aware of them. So the first thing is there's a lack of confidence there. And that's totally normal. It's normal for you to think, and probably healthy for you to think, I can't charge as much as somebody who's been doing it for 10 years. But it's important to know what industry standard is. And it's also important to know what your numbers are and what your financial goals are so that you can charge what you need to achieve your goals. A lot of people want to make what they made in corporate America between, $80,000 and $150,000 a year, and you are not going to make that, obviously, if you're charging rock bottom rates. And so people who tend to lowball themselves, it's a knee-jerk reaction because a client or a lead has challenged their rate, or they've criticized their rate and said, well, that's really expensive, or I hired somebody 3 months ago that charged way less than you do, or something to that effect that kind of is like a bit of a gut punch. And I just want to let you know that that's normal. People are going to say stuff like that all the time, and you do get used to taking those punches and just kind of like rolling with them and letting things roll off your back, and you'll have the sales language eventually to be able to counter that and explain why, if you feel like you need to explain yourself. And also to recognize that in some cases, the person saying that is not your ideal client, and that's a red flag. So we want to make sure that we are developing our confidence through the skills of knowing how to do sales, basically. So if you question your rates every time you quote them, it becomes this sort of feedback loop where you're willing to discount on a whim because somebody has challenged or criticized you. If you have your specifics in place, if you know your numbers, you know what you need in order to run the business, you're not going to succumb to those knee-jerk reactions as easily. It's really important to know that that happens a lot. The other thing is you're going to attract low quality clients, low commitment clients, let's call them. So low investment, low transformation, low follow through. And when somebody says to me, I know I'm good at what I do, I have, changed my entire life and my sister's life and whatever else, but you're charging those low rates, you're going to attract the bargain hunter clients that are going to nickel and dime you in most cases. And you're not going to be able to put forth your best effort. You're not going to be able to produce the result that you know you can when you charge too low. You're not going to get your foot in the door in those projects where you really are going to create those transformations that you want to create. And then the third thing that starts to happen, and the most heartbreaking part of this, is that you start to resent your work. And this is where people enter into a phase of burnout really quickly. And I see this in my membership program from time to time. I would say, my membership program is relatively new. We've had it going for about a year. It'll be a year in January of 2026. And there's a good chunk of people that stick it out and actually employ the strategies and all of the different lessons. There's like 32 core curriculum lessons in there that give you everything from A to Z of how to run the business back end of your business. And there are people in there that have taken that training and really utilized it and seen amazing results. And then there's like a third or so of folks that come in and they'll be in the membership program for like a month, maybe 2-3 months, and then they burn out and they don't ask me questions and they're not willing to allow for some constructive feedback or whatever it happens to be, or they just get really overwhelmed. And that also is a normal thing. And I think the reason for that is because they're charging too low. In most cases, when we do uncover and we do unpack why they're feeling overwhelmed, it's because they're charging not enough money. They're starting to resent this dream. It's become exhausting. All of this time cost that they've put into this, all of the investment that they're putting into this, it just becomes too much to work on the business and in it at the same time when you don't charge enough money. There's not enough skin in the game for you because you're not producing the results of that freedom and flexibility that you wanted. And so your body gets tired and suddenly this dream becomes completely exhausting. So obviously you deserve a business that supports your life. And that is why learning the back end is so important so that your business supports your life instead of draining it. All right, the next point that I kind of want to talk about is something that people might disagree with me on. But again, this comes from a lot of very careful, thoughtful, data-driven understanding, working with a ton of organizers over the years. It's simply just the fact that your price is not about the time. It's about the transformation. And so a lot of coaching clients come to me being very hung up because of all the different Facebook groups that they're in where everybody says, just charge hourly and stop thinking about it so much, which is fine. You can absolutely do that. That is a perfectly okay business model for a solo organizer and for some larger companies with teams and things of that nature. But there's ways that you can package and market your hours so that it really kind of guides people towards the transformation, and people get so hung up. My coaching clients get so hung up on, should I charge hourly? Should I do package pricing? Should I do project pricing? What's the right thing? I teach all three, or I teach you about all three in my membership program because there's no real one size fits all for that. I personally advocate for, and I Speak Organized operates under a project-based pricing model, and we make a lot more money and we don't work as many crazy hours because of that pricing model. And the reason for that doesn't necessarily have to do anything with the money specifically. It has to do with the mindset of the price is not about time. We're not organizing hours. We're not approaching it that way. We're not being paid for the minutes spent in a pantry. We're being paid for the clarity, the peace, the transformation that the client gets from working with us. So it's not really about the labor hours at the end of the day. It has everything to do with how we make the client feel, because obviously they're not paying us to just stand in their house. Although sometimes people will get you there and want to tell you a story for 30 minutes and that's, how they want to spend their money. I'm not going to judge, but we set those boundaries and expectations up ahead of time and have those real clear-cut conversations with our clients ahead of time. And they're paying for the result that their future selves are going to live in as a result. So we make it very results focused, very transformation focused, very emotionally driven. And if you find yourself in a situation, either as an organizer or working with a client who's very time focused, is very time is money, and you're feeling rushed in the process, then you're not going to be able to produce the highest quality result you want. And you'll also tend to realize that people with that mindset don't have a realistic understanding of how much time doing the process well is going to take. So we want to try to work with clients that do respect that it's a process and are willing to take the time and the steps necessary to achieve a full transformation. Obviously, having a team is going to make it happen faster. You may be a solopreneur working one-on-one with clients for a while, but you'll get clients that will want to continue working with you over and over again and are willing to stick it out for the long haul. And as a solo organizer, that's definitely the sweet spot. That's where we want to be. But if you're charging super low rates, you're not always going to get that person. You might get somebody, more often than not, I have seen working with coaching clients that sort of infringe, their scope creep. Suddenly you're sitting at the veterinarian's office with their cat. All of a sudden you're like, I am paid to organize. Why am I here doing all of these extra things that weren't in the original scope of the agreement of what we set out to do? So again, it's not about time. It's about the transformation. If you can sell the transformation, you will be able to charge more premium rates. And there is an art and a science to it. Again, that's one of those things that I teach really in depth in my membership program, so that you can decide how to do your hourly or your pricing around a package structure or project-based pricing. But you got to learn how to sell the transformation first. Okay, now that we have a better understanding of sort of the trends that are happening amongst aspiring and new organizers who are struggling with their rates, now I want to talk to you about a very simple and sustainable way to think about pricing. And I have an entire pricing formula, essentially, that I teach in my membership program that breaks this all down, but I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes notes, the too long didn't read version of this, because otherwise we're going to be here all day, because that's like a 4-part lesson. And if you're looking for something that's slightly more in depth, that's going to give you a better overview of my pricing formula to kind of get started in a more concrete sense, I will link to a free live stream that I did months back about my pricing formula that will give you some tools to actually start writing some stuff down. But this is definitely in and of itself right here. The Cliffs Notes version is going to get you started for sure. So let's say that you want to bring home $5,000 a month. In order to do that, we need to understand what our billable hours need to be every single month. So I sit down and I do this exercise with members in my program all the time. And I would say about 99% of the time, nobody has done this exercise, which is mind-boggling to me to think that we're just throwing numbers out there willy-nilly. And my biggest piece of advice in this situation is don't charge according to what other people are charging, because you have different financial goals than they do. You have different experience. You could be in a different niche at some point. There's all different factors. And so we need to understand what it is that we need to make, what our financial goals are in order to determine what our billable hours are and all the things. So, how much time do you actually have to devote to this? So let's say $5,000 a month, so that's what we want. Let's say we're going to shoot for 80 billable hours a month. So this is client-facing hours, the time that you spend with the client in their space, doing your thing. This does not account for all of the back-end business hours that you don't get paid for. You need to also factor that in for your own mental health and sanity to make sure that you have time for all the things, right? Or that you charge enough to outsource some of that stuff, which is my favorite strategy. So if we're looking at 80 billable hours and we're looking to make $5,000 a month, that alone would put your base rate at about $62.50 an hour. Okay. So that's why I tell most people don't charge any less than $60 an hour. And for some folks, that's a really bitter pill to swallow. When you've been charging $20, $30 an hour, you are paying yourself at the end of the day, between $8 and $10 an hour. Oh, it makes me so sad that people are making that little money doing this. This is important stuff that you do. So $62.50, that's our base minimum right there if you wanted to make $5,000 a month, okay? Which is kind of what most people need at the very bare minimum to survive in this economy. So then you're going to add on your monthly business expenses on top of that. So you need to know what those are. It's important to factor all that stuff in and not just accept, but also understand that you wouldn't have business expenses if you weren't running a business, which is what you're doing. So you need a website. You're going to have subscriptions. You're going to have tools, in your bag that you bring with you, your label maker and your Sharpies and whatever else. I have a whole training on that as well. You have all that stuff, your insurance, all the things are your business expenses that you need in order to be on the up and up. And you wouldn't have those expenses if you didn't run a business. And so those things need to be compensated for as well. So we factor all that in together. Let's say, for the sake of example, that comes out to be about $1,000 a month. So we need to divide that $1,000 a month by the same 80 hours, because that's the time that we're spending that's billable, that we're making money, that we're bringing in the revenue, right? So that's going to add another $12.50 per hour to our hourly rate. So now, knowing how much you want to make, your bare minimum sustainable hourly rate in order to achieve those goals and do this thing for real is going to be $75 an hour. Okay. So this is before you scale. It's before your profit margins. It is before your team. So that's a real business baseline, no desperation pricing. Now, if that sounds like, holy crap, that's way too big of a number, scale back your billable hours a little bit. Scale back the money that you think you're going to make. You can shift these numbers around here. Another really interesting thing that happens when I go through this exercise with people is they're like, well, that's it. I can't charge that, and then they give up. And I'm like, no, just we can work up to that. We can reduce our billable hours a little bit. We're going to have to right size our expectations somewhat. Maybe you're going to only make $3,000 a month at first. Maybe you don't outright quit your job right away. There's all different ways that we can work this through. And a lot of it comes easier once you have the confidence to charge that amount of money, I do recommend getting training at that point. Once you feel like you have gone through a program, you've gotten training, you feel confident in what you provide, you have your service menu, you have your insurance, you have all your ducks in a row, you're very professional, your website's on point, you got SEO working for you, all the things that I teach in my membership program give people confidence to be able to charge $75 an hour without batting an eyelash. And then they're attracting the clients that are willing to pay that rate because they know how to sell to them. They know how to market that. They know what their materials should look like, what their shirts should look like, what to show up with on the job, how to do the work for them so that the client doesn't even have to be involved. Those are all the things that I teach you in order to be able to charge that premium rate, to make that $5,000 and beyond, and then how to implement a team to increase that ROI 4 times, 5 times, and make this a full 6 or 7 figure business. So that's where we're aiming. This is not playing little leagues. We're going for big leagues here, my friends. So fam, if you're sitting here listening or watching this right now and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, I've never looked at my pricing like this before, this makes so much sense. It's probably a good indication that you need to head down to the description of the video and the podcast show notes and check out the resources that we have available through I Speak Organized. If you want that one-on-one support, come and book a coaching session with me. The slots fill up pretty fast, so especially if it's the beginning of the month, go snap one up. You can have that one-on-one eye on your business, on your pricing. We can work out the formula together and get you well on your way. And if you know that you need that support for all the things and you're just getting started, but this is it, like this is your thing, this is what you want to do, join the Empowered Organizer membership program. You can cancel anytime. It's kind of like Netflix. You get to subscribe. You have access to the 32 lessons. We do live coaching calls every single month so that you get that Q&A coaching time built into the membership program twice a month. It's really amazing and it's awesome. We love it in there. We have a good time and we get a lot done. It's good quality information. I have a lot of other resources. If you go to ispeakorganized.com/courses, you can check out my Pro Organizer Forms pack there, where there's a client agreement, a health and safety waiver, credit card authorization form, all the different things that go along with a good pricing structure to make sure that you can detail all that stuff in writing to your clients to be super official, make sure that your business is legally protected, all the things that you need. I have a template there that is plug and play for you that you can check out. I'll make sure to link to that down below as well. But I want to make sure to leave you with the last few things that you can do right now if you're undercharging. Okay, so if you're undercharging, here is, if I were you and I were in your shoes, here's what I would do today. I would, and this is going to make people a little bit nervous thinking about this, but I want you to try it, because what's the worst that happens? You bring your rate back down, you try it out for a month, 2 months, whatever, you kind of chicken out and bring it back down. You know, we're going to start with this. Raise your rate $10 to $15 right now, immediately, and just see what happens. That alone is going to change who inquires. You're not going to get that low commitment client anymore, the tire kicker that you're going to have to chase down and try to convince. You don't want to have to convince anybody of anything. You want them to take you seriously because you are up to industry standard with how you're charging. You also don't want to be so busy that you have no free time while also realizing that people are taking advantage of you. That's the other thing that really bothers me about this, is that people do their homework and they see that you are charging super low and they're taking advantage of your talent and your time. And I don't want that to happen to you anymore, because again, my goal is for you to run a business that doesn't suck away all of your time so that you don't become burned out and resentful of your dream. We don't want that. So we want to change who's going to inquire, and that happens by raising your rates. So try $10 or $15 an hour, especially if you're hitting that $30 an hour mark. Just see what happens. See who starts to inquire. Stop copying what competitors charge. That's the second thing here. We don't base our rates on what other people charge. That's for them to figure out. That has nothing to do with your personal financial goals, your personal business goals. That's not a good business strategy to do what somebody else is doing, unless you really truly understand what, how, and why they're doing it. So it's better to understand those variables from inside your own business and your own goals. So we want to make sure that we know what our overhead and our profit goals are, because we don't know theirs, right? The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to start trying to factor in all of those different services that we may not have been charging for before. So maybe you've been in business for a few years and you're feeling very frustrated with the fact that you're doing all of this extra stuff for free. So we're going to start thinking about charging for admin, sourcing, product shopping, all of those different things, time that you spend measuring, space mapping, designing spaces, thinking about the zones, scrolling Amazon for hours upon hours, looking for the perfect product. By the way, there are so many more streamlined ways to go about product sourcing. Just saying that that's also something that I teach in my membership program. You see the theme here catching on. So we're going to respect and understand that your brain and your talent, the thing that you know you're good at, is part of the product. It's part of the result. It's part of the transformation that the client's going to experience. And so we need to be charging for that time. So those are add-on services. And we're going to stop using affordable in our brand identity. I definitely am no stranger to that. I still do at times catch myself using the word affordable in my branding. Sometimes I find it to be appropriate depending upon who I'm marketing to. But for the most part, as a professional organizer, if you are somebody who struggles with offering very low pricing and you struggle with confidence, let's try to eliminate the word affordable from our lexicon when it comes to marketing our business. You want to be the value option, not the cheap option. That's my goal for you, because this isn't just about you. Like we talked about at the beginning, we want to make sure that we're part of this as a whole, as an industry, that we're reinforcing the narrative that organizing is not a hobby. It's not a side gig. It is a legitimate profession with 6 and 7 figure potential. And so we want to live up to that potential because you are worth it. You are part of that potential. And so we are going to work together as a team to elevate the industry. And we're going to do it together by pricing ethically. We're going to price confidently, and we're going to do it strategically. Okay, my friends, that is going to wrap up today's little chat. We can call it an episode, whatever you want to call it. I'm just happy that you took a little bit of time out of your day to come and hang out with me. And I hope that you found this little pep talk encouraging. I hope that you found it valuable and you were able to learn something, even if it's just a little bit. If you're still looking for more, obviously go down to the description of the video and the podcast show notes where you can have access to the long form live stream training about my pricing formula. Definitely a good place to start there, especially if you're brand new and you're like, who is this lady? I don't know you. So take a look at that. There's also a companion blog post that I completely forgot to mention earlier that goes along with that live stream. So if you don't have a full hour or however long that training is, they're usually relatively robust. If you don't have a whole hour to devote to that free training, you can read through the blog post. Both of those things are there for you. If you're all in, again, go down to the description of the video, podcast show notes, check out all of the resources that we have available for you. Join the membership program, hop on a coaching call with me, come hang out. We have a great time, and I will make sure that we're able to help you build and scale a very successful organizing company. We're going to do it together, and we're going to make it profitable. And I'm so excited to do that with you. Now, beyond that, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on new content that we produce every week. If you have questions, be sure to comment them down below. You can join our free Facebook group, which is going to be also in the description and the podcast show notes. It's a great place to get questions answered amongst peers. There's a lot of people in that group just like you who are brand new and just starting out and getting a lot of questions answered there as well. So you're free to join that group at the link down below. Beyond that, I hope you guys have a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, and welcome to the Speak Organized. Are you serious right now? You're such a jerk. Oh.